What's up, y'all? Henry Higita here with episode 5 of Across the Pitch, where we also play through international breaks because soccer is just as fun when teams are missing some of their best players. Well, Atlanta United was sure missing something when it fell 2-1 against Inter Miami this past weekend, and it's going to be missing some important players when it travels to face FC Cincinnati on Saturday. Among those, Miguel Almiron, Stian Gregerson, and Bartek Slish. But anyway, I have here to help me talk through this game, Josh Dye of the Cincinnati Soccer Talk podcast. Josh, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Henry. Thank you so much for having me. It's pretty exciting for me. I've never done one of these cross podcasts before, and so when I heard you guys were looking out, I was like, "Yeah, all right, guess getting the big time, getting the call to the show." So I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. We love crossovers here. We're all about that. So, Josh, first of all, let's kind of wind back time and take a look back at what 2024 was for FC Cincinnati. Finished third in the East, was eliminated by NYCFC in round one of the playoffs. What was your verdict on that season overall?
Yeah, I'm gonna bring up some old wounds here to start. That's tough. No, the expectations were high coming for FC Cincinnati, coming off of the 2023 run where they went to the Eastern Conference Final and got bounced out by rival Columbus Crew. So, 2024 was full of expectation and full of belief that this team was the defending supporter shield winning team, so this should be a trophy winning season. And as time went on and injuries piled up and things kind of came to head, it's not hard, it's a tough pill to swallow that it went down and the way it did, because that team should have won some things. And the injury to Matt Miazga, the injury to Nick Haglund really decimated that back line. And ever since that happened, the team never really looked the same. Legs got tired. Luciano Costa had to bear the weight of kind of everything, and that kind of put the team in an awkward spot at the end of the year where the legs were dead. So it was a really disappointing end to a season that should have brought better things.
Now, you mentioned Lucho Acosta, one of the players who moved around this offseason and was kind of the subject of some interesting discussions, some hot rumors. Could you help kind of clear up exactly what happened? Because I know there was like stories that he wasn't happy, and that after they were bounced from the playoffs, he said some things. Could you kind of recap that saga for us?
Yeah, so Lucho left the team in not the greatest terms. As it got reported out, he turned out him and general manager Chris Albright did not see eye to eye on how things should be constructed, and it kind of came to pass between Lucho and him about whether players should be sent away, whether certain players should be, brought back. He Lucho is a passionate guy, and they bent a little bit in bringing some players around him that he gelled with, and that understood his style of play, and the team really reaped the benefits of that for a good couple of years. So I think it kind of took everybody by surprise when he put out the statement at the end of the season that he potentially was going to be playing his last game. It kind of took everybody by surprise when he was doing this and saying it to press in Argentina. He had skipped postseason press locally, and then popped up a couple of days later on ESPN Argentina and saying things that maybe he wanted to go back home, maybe he wanted to do this and that, and it might be the end of the time. So that kind of dragged out throughout the entire off season, and it was a cloud hanging over this entire team. And you kind of started to hear the rumblings that, oh, he's going to go to Boca Junior, oh, he's going to go to Corinthians, all these South American teams that he might be able to cash in on. And then things just stopped moving, and it kind of came to head where the team had to make a decision. And when MLS opened up the internal trading for cash, that was kind of an outlet for Chris Albright to move off that contract. Because that's the other thing too, is the year prior, he had just signed an extension, a major contract extension with Cincinnati, and kind of he took out an entire paper in the Cincinnati Enquirer about, this is my home. This is where my kids go to school. This is, Cincinnati is where I want to be. And so again, doubly added to the blind side of it all of why it's happening. And so, it just ended, unfortunately. You had to rip the Band-Aid off with the trade request and everything, the transfer out that he wanted. And I think I think everyone would have been probably understood if it was ended up being just, hey, I want to go back to South America. I want to do, you know, in the twilight of his career, go back home. Um, but for him to be so open to moving within the league, obviously eventually being trained at FC Dallas. Um, I think it rubbed people the wrong way here. So at the end of the day, it's a saga that had an unfortunate end, when it should have been something that either continued or allowed the team to move him to a place where he can go, be celebrated, and we could celebrate him in Cincinnati still. And now it's just kind of awkward, kind of feels bad.
An awkward part of what was a busy offseason for Cincinnati. Let's jump into the transfer business. Adios, Luciano Acosta. Hello, Evander. Tell me a little bit about him. I mean, he's played 8 games so far, has 5 goal contributions. How impressed are you guys with Evander so far?
It's interesting because Lucho was such a focal point of this team is still kind of in a weird spot trying to figure out where to go offensively. Evander plays such a different style than Lucho Acosta, Lucho needs to be on the ball a lot, and you saw him dropping down to his own top of 18 to carry the ball through and facilitate the offense that way. And, Evander's numbers speak for himself when he was with Portland. I mean, he's a dynamic player. He doesn't cost what he costs because, he's got potential. His potential is now. He's, an MVP finalist a year ago. So for now, it's just trying to get that figured out. He arrived so late because of the Lucho situation. He missed Evander was not in most of the preseason with FC Cincinnati. Um, and so he's starting to pop up, and you're starting to see the flashes. Obviously, he leads the team in all the kind of progressive movement that you would want to see from a guy that you're paying and a guy that you want to see run the offense the way. But FC Cincinnati looks like a team that's trying to figure out how to best utilize Evander and how to get Evander in the spots that he's most comfortable with. And I think he's still figuring it out. And I know we're gonna get more stuff and some more stuff later, but he looks like a guy that's going to figure it out, but he's not quite there yet. Things are just a little bit off, a touch or two off. So overall, I think people are impressed. I think people can see the opportunities that he provides and the link up play that he can do, especially on the dead ball. It's FC Cincinnati hasn't really had a pure goal scoring threat on a dead ball like they have with Evander. So it'll be interesting to see that part of his game continue to pop up in moments. But overall, I'd say the outlook is promising, but not quite there yet.
Cincinnati made another big acquisition this transfer window, but Atlanta's probably not going to see him this weekend because he got called up. But Kevin Denke, now the interesting thing about him that I kind of want to hear from you, you mentioned how Evander's a little bit different from Lucho Acosta. Well, by the time Kevin Denke was signed, I think they signed him with Lucho Acosta kind of in mind, if that timing is correct. Does he, from what you've seen so far, does he fit well with Evander?
Yeah, I mean, the timeline is absolutely correct. Kevin Denke was brought in. They announced the Kevin Denke signing the day or two after the loss to NYCFC, and Kevin Denke was in the house, was there when they got eliminated. And so that was part of what brought him there was, Denke saying the atmosphere was incredible, the fans, the facilities, everything. So Kevin Denke was absolutely signed to be a partner with Lucho Acosta. Fast forward now, and it's like I kind of reiterating what I said about Evander is they look like a pairing that are still trying to figure each other out. Denke is a striker that the team has not had and since similar style playings of when Brenner was here, because he just the way that he moves on the ball and the way that he holds the ball up and his fluidity running into channels and different things. It's kind of interesting. Just his first couple of games, he kind of looks like um, Brenner and Brandon Vasquez kind of combined into one, where he's going to use his physicality to hold the play up and lay the balls off to the wing backs or to runners running off of him. But he's got the fluidity and he's got the understanding of where what pockets of space he needs to live in, that Brenner did so well. And those two guys obviously were key to the Supporters Shield win in 2023. So Kevin Denke is going to be special, and you have to kind of believe that. Again, as you mentioned, he's a big price to pay. He enjoyed that record for a good minute before Atlanta, obviously, with Latte Lath coming in and taking that title from him. But he's a young guy. He's a high prolific striker that the team has not really invested in a long. This regime, especially in Chris Albright, has not invested in, and so you're gonna give them some grace, Denke and Evander, to figure it out and give the other offensive pieces time to kind of figure out where Kevin Denke wants to run or how he's going to create space for each other, because you kind of have to, and you have to believe that this is the attack, because if it doesn't work, then the questions start to really glare. But he looks the part, just again missing a touch or two here and there.
And you know what? Atlanta is kind of experiencing that a little bit with Latte Lat. Even though Latte Lat has 3 goals already, it's kind of him trying to develop the partnership with these other players that Atlanta has, specifically with Marancha, because the idea of bringing him in was that association. And then obviously you bring Miggy in, and so you have another piece that he has to get used to. So I think Atlanta's in a very similar situation. And a part of me is kind of bummed that Kevin Denke won't be part of this game, because that's kind of the rivalry to me of like the 2 expensive strikers in the East, the 2, I guess, going into this season, the 2 most exciting attacks after, the dust settles on this winter transfer window. But I kind of want to look at the other side now, the outgoings for Cincinnati. A lot of them, some interesting names, but I want to focus on one very near and dear to Atlanta United fans, Yamil Asad, first goal scorer in Atlanta United history, had 30 appearances for Cincy last season and 11 goal contributions. Why was it right to move on from him?
Emil Assad was such a dynamic piece, and I think he represented what Chris Albright can do well, and that's find those pieces for lower salary that those diamonds in the rough. It's well documented that Emil Assad and Lucho Acosta are really, really good friends, and bringing Assad in felt like a piece that said, this is a guy that we can insert into our starting lineup that knows where Lucho Costa wants to be, and Lucho Costa knows where he's going to be. And you saw that on the field. They know each other. They know how each other plays. And at the end of the day, when you're looking at how you're going to upgrade this lineup, maybe Emil Assad wanted a contract that was a little bit higher after what he contributed, and he absolutely had the right to, and I think maybe the price was a little bit too high for what the value that you were going to get out of it, because you had guys like Matt Miazga, who was on injured reserve last year, coming back. Nick Hagland's contract was not too high, but there was just kind of a squeeze on the payroll that this team had when all of their pieces kind of came back. On that list right there, Alvaro Barreal was on loan. He was making a good amount of money, and then they couldn't find a sale for him, so he had to return with his salary on. So when all those pieces kind of came back, you had to figure out, okay, where's the money that we can do? And I think at the end of the day, Yamil Assad just had to be one of those pieces that had to go because of the way that the money was and the way that the money that he was. And it kind of ran into the same situation a year prior, um, when multiple pieces just kind of have to move. And you see that in MLS all the time. Obviously, we see this year over year. Roster turnover is such a high thing in MLS because the structure is just the way that it is, and you can't fit all of these pieces, and you can't continually give all of these guys pay raises when they want them, even though they might deserve it. I mean, this whole offseason and for FC Cincinnati was marred by that, with Yu Yakubo holding out because he thought his contract was too high, and you had Chidobe Awuzie. That's a name right there in your out transfers list, the center back that they traded. They had to trade to Colorado, and they packaged him and Ian Murphy together to get some salary relief because even though he was an incredibly valuable piece, you had roster coming back, you had salary coming back, so they had to move him to free up some space. So Yamil Assad was awesome, and I think a lot of people would have happily welcomed him back, but it just was one of those pieces that when they were looking at how they can upgrade the roster for this season, getting someone like Lucas Engel into the fold, you could think and say like, okay, look, the pedigree is are we going to spend a resource here? And Chris Albright thought this is a place that we can upgrade, and especially when you considered, okay, maybe if Lucho is kind of saying these things after the season, maybe we figure out a way that we can build this team without Lucho Acosta in mind.
The pains of working around a salary cap, something that Atlanta is very familiar with post 2019, and that I
Oh,
think the LA Galaxy are feeling right about now.
absolutely, and that's what it is. I mean, you look at a team like that who's like, okay, they just have to shed everyone because nobody like Galaxy wants to shed all of that roster space and then shed all of that talent, but that's what you're gonna have to do. I mean, those outbound transfers there on the screen, it says a lot of it. Now, a lot of those guys are depth pieces and things like that. But I mean, they this league forgives no one when you're trying to roster construct. So I never envy MLS GMs for sure.
One of the hardest jobs on the planet.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at Cincinnati's start to the season. Similarly to Atlanta United, a couple of bumps on the road, 2 wins, 2 losses in MLS. This past week, coming off a CONCACAF Champions Cup elimination against Tigres and a weekend loss to Charlotte FC. So, what are your thoughts on Cincy's first 8 games of the season?
Tired. I'm tired, much like they are. I'm sure. You do the math, and um, it'll be 20. Over the last 4 weeks of the season starts, they've played 8 games. Like that's a lot on the body. This week leading into the Atlanta game is their first full practice week of the season. So that tells you kind of how it's been. There's been a midweek game and then a weekend game, and a midweek game, and so like the legs have been spent, and so far, you kind of have to take everything with a grain of salt, or at least that's in my opinion. You can kind of follow some of the fan base within the circles here, and you can find different opinions about whether it's time to panic or anything like that. But if you look at the MLS season as a whole, 4 games in, yeah, you wanna hope that they're gonna start figuring some things out. I think the biggest concern right now is the goal scoring. I mean, we spent $30+ million on this attack between Kevin Denke and Evander and buying Luca Orishano, buying his contract outright and giving him a little pay grade. So um, that's a lot of money spent on a team, and so far it's 4 goals, 1 goal a game. They look like a team trying to figure it out still. And so I give them some grace because they look like a team that's doing that. I mean, they're 15th in XG per 90. So they're starting to figure things out. They're getting in dangerous positions. Um, you know, they've their goals against Charlotte this past weekend are things that you can fix. You know, a bad giveaway on a header that kind of just falls and you get bounced in transition, and you know, things that can be corrected. It's really the offensive output that really kind of needs to start gelling, and you kind of can start to ask the questions of what the tactics are and how can they change things. But for me, it goes back to the practice thing of like this team is going to start practicing together really for the first time. And even this weekend, like you said, you're missing Kevin Denke even on the first full week of practice that you've had all season. So even now you're still not getting your complement of pieces. So um, it's going to take time to get all these pieces together, and eventually that excuse, if you want to call it that, is going to run out. But I think give it a couple more weeks. Call me in April, and we'll see how the team looks, and if it's still a 1 goal a game output, then you can start to worry. But I think for now, you've got. I'll give them some grace and start to ask. The questions are starting to be asked, and I don't think that's outrageous for a team that's spent this much money and has the aspirations, and I think reasonable aspirations of winning a trophy this year. That's the goal, and I think so far they don't look like a team that's ready to win one. But luckily, they don't have to try to win one in March. You know, MLS Cup is not until October, so we're fine.
Right, and MLS is a league where you only have to be good for 10 games, so that helps.
It certainly does. Yeah, get hot at the right time is really the name of the game in MLS, as we've seen. So position yourself in by September to be within striking distance, and then really start to judge a team, which is weird, but that's the league.
Sure is. Well, Atlanta is also a team that spent millions on its attack, and it's trying to figure out how to make it work. So let's talk about this clash of the teams trying to figure that out. You sent me your predicted 11. Here we have it on screen now. Take me through this 11 and highlight for me some of the key players we have to watch.
Yes. So like we've talked about, this team is both of these teams are dealing with some absences and dealing with some things. So, Nick Hagland in that starting lineup, that's Pat Noonan saying that he's finally ready. He's coming off of major injury at the end of last season. Miles Robinson, who you guys are very familiar with, he had picked up a hamstring injury at the beginning of the Charlotte match last week. Left in the 30th minute. They say out of precaution. Pat Noonan says he's going to be ready to go too. So those are my two starting center back pairings there, and it'll be the first time those two have really kind of played together in more than a year, so or little over a year. So that is the matchup. That is a pairing that is going to be something to watch, especially with Latte Loth's speed. Neither one of those guys are really known for their speed. But I'll be watching Miles Robinson, trying to mark him and seeing if, especially if DeAndre Ledlin is going to help out Nick Hagland. Um, and there's also the potential chance that Pat Noonan throws a three center backs out there. The issue there is that those two center backs are the only ones on the roster right now who are healthy. You have Gilberto Flores, who's a U22 signing that they brought in. He's suspended with a red card that he picked up as a second yellow against Charlotte. And Teenage Hadebe, who is away and getting his green card and also healing from an injury that he had picked up. So he's going to be out this week. So Miles Robinson and Nick Hagland are the only two center backs. Alvis Powell can fill in a spot. So if you do see a three-back system from Pat Noonan, Alvis Powell would be in there, and that'll at least provide you with some pace. But this is a lineup that you kind of have to roll out with, considering the numbers. We've talked about Lucas Engel a little bit. He's been a primary playmaker down the left flank for them. We'll see if he's allowed to push forward, because a lot of the defense that Cincinnati has had to do is Obina Wobodo covering for Lucas Engel, who goes up wide down the left flank there, and maybe they get caught out of transition and Engel can't get back. So center back is a big spot to watch for. And obviously, as we've talked about up top, Sergio Santos, is the only other pure striker on the roster outside of Kevin Denke, who's we've talked about gone in playing for his hometown Togo on international duty. So we'll see if Sergio Santos gets the start. Corey Baird is also an option if they want to roll kind of a false nine. Yuya Kubo and Luca Orishano or can rotate into those spots. So I'm going to be watching specifically in that offensive attack, kind of how those four attacking players rotate in and around, because if they're going to if Sergio Santos is going to get the start, you're going to see a lot of long ball play. He also will track back a lot. He's got a good high energy rate. He's obviously brings speed, as he has throughout his whole MLS career, but he's always been one that they kind of like to reserve to bring on later and to attack defense, tired defensive legs. So does he get a start? Do they try to roll out with a false nine? It could look like a 4-3-3 at times, depending on where Evander can kind of tuck in. Um, so this could be a great game for Evander to kind of showcase his ability to take over. That's kind of what I'm going to be looking for him to do, especially against a back line that's going to be missing a lot of pieces. Obviously, you guys have a ton of pieces missing also on international duty. So my circle is obviously it's the easy way out, but it's Evander. He's the guy that you brought in to run this offense. It's time for him to facilitate a game where he's missing obviously his biggest piece, his biggest partnership up top, but this is an opportunity for you to be creative, be on the ball, find the pockets of space that he needs to, and really create chances that this team hasn't done a lot of this season, and that's get kind of these breakdown goals. A lot of their goals so far have come, from the penalty spot or interesting transition moments on the counter attack. So I would love to see the creative ability of Evander here attacking a back line that is missing some key pieces.
And Evander and Cincinnati will be going up against a very depleted Atlanta back line. One center back available. Yay.
So the struggles, right? This is going to be a game that's like whose center back pairings can hold on the longest. Because I would love a Latte Loth right now. That would be incredible. But I think that's why Sergio Santos might get a start here, because if Latte Loth's speed is going to play into this game, Cincinnati's going to need a counter punch with somebody. And so Sergio Santos is the only one that can counter punch with that kind of speed up top. So I'll be super curious to see how that speed matchup goes against each other.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is like a matchup between two glass cannons. It's crazy. But I wanna highlight one of the center backs, and you talked about him a little bit, Miles Robinson, number 2 overall, 2017 Super Draft pick. Played in Atlanta for a few years, and now a renowned defender in MLS and the U.S. men's national team. Arrived in Cincinnati ahead of 2024. Describe a little bit his impact for the club so far.
Well, he's the captain. He filled right in. He's kind of been the piece that they went out and got kind of unexpectedly. Miles was an addition that I don't think anyone really kind of saw coming a couple of years ago when this team was kind of reshuffling the deck. You've talked about his accolades. He is a U.S. men's national team, name staple. And I think he kind of brings stability to that back line, especially when Matt Miazga went down. Great 1v1 defender, incredible on the ball, has been one of the better, pass breaking defenders that this league has seen, and he's kind of only reaffirmed that his line breaking passes can really start an offense, and it's been critical for FC Cincinnati because as this team is trying to figure out their offensive identity, having a guy like Miles Robinson who can make a pass, skip the midfield, find outlet on the wings, the kind of passing that you need out of a center back, especially when you're playing with 3 center backs that FC Cincinnati would like to do but don't have the numbers to do right now. He's been very helpful. Now, saying all of that, it's he's had shaky moments this year. He's had moments where he kind of looks like he's out of position, or trying to overcover for lapses in the midfield, or he's been playing next to Gilberto Flores a lot, as I mentioned, a U22 who's looked like a U22 a lot. So he's kind of had to take on the responsibility that maybe is a little too much at times, and finds himself into bad positions. But um, he's going to be called on until Matt Miazga, especially Matt Miazga, can get healthy, to be that anchor. And so far, he's done well. I think people are used to seeing FC Cincinnati kind of having a stalwart defense the last couple of years, and so maybe there's some, again, nerves, some nervousness within the fan base that this is, they're leaking goals a little bit. But 6 goals in 8 games, 6 goals in the 4 games so far. They got absolutely blitzed by Philadelphia a couple weeks back, and that was probably, I mean, that was their ugliest performance. But I mean, you can chalk that up to, I chalk that up to just tired legs. But Matt Miles Robinson is been wearing the armband, and outside of, maybe you want to see him be more vocal, more aggressive on the field. Um, his play has stabilized a back line that has kept this team in it for the most part, while the offense is still trying to gel. So he's as advertised, and I think will only get better once he doesn't have to kind of carry the load as he has so far this year.
Now, I know you told me earlier it's a bit of a work in progress right now, and they're still trying to figure it out. But describe for me FC Cincinnati's play style, and what are some of the strengths and weaknesses that they bring into this game against Atlanta?
Yeah, so I mean, this is a team that has transitioned kind of from a back three with wing backs to a back four because of the injuries and the numbers that they have. But that's not going to prevent them from doing what they like to do, which has been really utilize their flanks and utilize their fullbacks and the left back and right back spots. And utilize their space out wide. They want to get overlapping runs or underlapping runs from their wingers and from their wing backs to kind of open up the space in the middle. Um, and so far, that's, again, you're in that space and in that opportunity you're in that time frame where guys are still trying to figure out where they need to run, where those runs need to go, where's Kevin Denke gonna open up the space, who's gonna fill in behind him. And at times when it's worked, it's looked great. And at other times, you could just see the giveaways, the simple, like, oh, they thought he was running here, and or Vander's gonna hit this ball this way, and things aren't clicking right now. But they're definitely going to try to utilize that wide space, especially, I mean, if you get Yuya Kubo and Luca Orishano out wide. Luca Orishano is a guy that is one of the best one-on-one attackers that this team definitely has, and I would argue one of the best in this league, that especially after we saw last year. He's going to utilize the space, go onto his left foot, and either find runners off of that, or utilize his touch and take some shots and get that space there. So how him and Evander work off each other is still a work in progress. Yuya Kubo is another base eater guy that can he's versatile. He's played striker, he's played winger, he's played midfield, he's played wingback. Literally, the running joke within the fan base is like, all right, we need Yuya Kubo center back time. Like, they need it. That's the only spot on the field he hasn't started yet. So, but he's a dynamic piece. He scored 10 goals last year, but he too is also kind of looking like a guy that's trying to learn the new offense, because he learned so long where to run and where to find the space for Lujo Acosta. Now he's trying to figure out, okay, where do I need to be to link up with Evander? Where is Kevin Denke going to be? So the attack's going to go through the wings still, but it's still kind of a work in progress to kind of see how can they break a press, and how can they, once they get to that final third, where's the movement going? Because right now, when you watch this team, even when they have the most of the possession, it's still kind of just balls going left and right, trying to wait for somebody to do the run or someone to make the magic happen on the ball that we're used to seeing when Lucho Acosta has the ball. Well, that offense isn't going to work anymore because that piece isn't there anymore. So guys are starting to figure out where they need to be, what runs they need to make to open up the spots, but it's a work in progress.
Now, I'm going to put you on the spot real quick. We are running kind of a score prediction competition between our Scarves and Spikes staff, and we're including y'all, the guests on this show, which, by the way, y'all are in first, so this is kind of embarrassing, but you are going to have to keep this going, man. So
that's tough. That's
what? Yeah.
That's a lot of pressure.
Exactly. So to keep the streak going, what is going to be the score this weekend between Atlanta United and Cincinnati?
I will say it is going to be 2-1 Atlanta United. I think Latte Loth in the attacking piece, he looks real, and I with the shifts that FC Cincinnati's defense are going to have to keep making, with the pieces kind of moving in and out, with the attacking pieces that, like I've talked about, the struggles right now that trying to find the spaces to get these goals. I think this is an opportunity for Atlanta to kind of come in and pounce real quick and kind of, might be 1-1. Maybe they get a late goal, to kind of seal the deal. But I think Latte lost speed, and his ability on the ball is going to be the difference there. And you just don't have that touch right now. I hope I'm wrong. Evander breakout game, ? Hopefully. But yeah, 2-1. I'll say 2-1 Atlanta with stealing some points in the Queen City.
I'll take that for sure. All right, Josh.
I'll be welcomed anytime. I don't know if I'm going to be allowed back on Cincinnati Soccer Talk, so we'll see what happens. But
come to the dark side.
Got to be real.
We'll send you a shirt for Scarves and Spikes, and then you can join our ranks.
Yeah.
I mean, we already have a guy in Ohio, so you'd be right at home.
Well, I'm an East Coaster too, so that's the other thing. So I'm not even in Ohio. So
well, we'll take that. Any final thoughts before we get out of here, Josh?
No, again, thank you guys for having me. This matchup will be fun to watch. I feel like it could be a muddied game. It won't shock me if this is like a 0-0, 1-1 muddy draw, or just a buck wild 3-3, like whatever game, just because of all the different pieces. So I think no matter what, it should be fun and exciting. And again, thank you guys for having me on, and it's been a pleasure.
Absolutely, Josh. Now, where can people find you on socials and stuff?
Absolutely. So I am at Aquanoggin on all my socials, going back to some long story days. But you can find the work that we do at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com, at Cincy Soccer Talk on all the socials. There is a lot of people doing a lot of incredible work for our group, and I was very blessed that I was asked to be the one to represent today, because there's a lot super smart people doing a lot of great work between the podcasts and the written work and the breakdowns of all the Cincinnati area soccer that goes on. So check us out on there, and keep supporting all the local soccer like you guys. So we're building this thing up piece by piece, local by local. So again, thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. Well, Atlanta United at FC Cincinnati. That's going to be Saturday at 2:30 p.m. at TQL Stadium. Keep in mind, we have a watch along for our patrons in our Discord. So if you are a part of the Patreon, make sure to join that watch along. If you're not, what are you waiting for, man? Come on, $1.17 a month, and you get access to exclusive content, interview audio, bonus stuff, and the Discord, which is the main attraction. Check out our website for news, opinions, all types of articles and stuff. And the shop, of course, where you can get yourself some sweet merch. We got hats, we got hoodies, we got tons of cool stuff for you to check out. And that's going to do it for this episode of Across the Pitch. Thanks, everyone, for watching. And Josh, thank you so much for your time.